All right, guys, in this module, we're going to talk about exiting the deal. So the exit strategy that you need to put into place to be able to sell that property. And we are in the rehab business, guys. This is a business, all right? So we're going to want to be profiting from this. So we're going to show you in this module all the things and steps you need to know on how to exit the deal and how to get paid.
Understand at this point, you cannot do anything to adjust and make your numbers better.
That's right. You've already purchased the property. You've already fixed the property. The money's sunk. It's spent.
People say all the time, you make your money at the purchase. You do not understand it until you're at this point. When you're trying to make money and you spent too much money on the rehab, or you realized you purchased too much, or that you signed that high commission for the agent, and then they negotiated away your profit, I'm telling you, this is where you really understand, wow, that's what they mean by you make your profit on the purchase. You cannot impact any numbers from this point in. You're just writing it in, but we're going to help you write it in to the best of your ability on the things that you need to do to get it in the market and get it sold.
Right. Yeah, I always say to my business partners, you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell.
Exactly.
But you make that money when you buy. You don't get paid till you sell, but if you buy it right, then you're limiting the risk of not getting paid or getting paid a lot less. So it's all about buying right. Can't reiterate that enough, Tim.
It is so true.
Makes perfect sense. So let's jump right in. Getting it on the market.
So the one thing you got to determine very first, right off the bat, is are you going to list this yourself and sell it as a non-agent or non-licensed agent person, or are you going to hire that person in order to help you facilitate the sale? Now, there's different processes with each one when you do that. Before you get there, you got to be looking at some items in the cost to hire an agent as a cost to not having an agent. That is some area that you can handle if you find yourself, $10,000, $15,000 short. It's a $200,000 house. If you list it and sell it yourself, you save that commission.
You do.
Which could be 12 to 18 grand.
You do, but there's also pros and cons with that as well. It's a lot more difficult to sell it on your own.
It
is. An agent has tools like the multiple listing service that they can help get that out to tons of buyers and buyers agents that essentially go to work for you.
Exactly.
So again, you have your pros and cons, so you definitely need to weigh those when you're making that decision.
However, it's much better today than it used to be with Craigslist. You've got all the different search engines. You've got Zillow,
so on and so forth.
You have a lot. You got Facebook. There's lots of different ways that you can get the word out in the market and what you want to do. But pricing is a factor that you want to be looking at. How are you going to price your project? We talked about before that you want to now look again at your comps and see where does your property fall in relationship to all the other opportunities and options that people have as a buyer to pick in your basic neighborhood.
It's a great
so
point.
You want to find out, you go online, you look at all the comps, you see their pictures, you go, wow, those are ugly. Look at mine looks really nice. So then what you want to say is, if my house is the nicest on that package, I want to price it 5% below where everybody else is. And you say, well, why would I want to do that? Because you want to offer the best looking project at the lowest price.
You are providing the most value.
Yes. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, people look through the pictures, they click. Wow, yours look professional.
And it's cheaper than the other one.
And it's cheaper. They go, well, man, it must be a misprint in MLS. Let me go look at it.
Let me go look at it.
Well, they go look at it and they go, wow, there's a frenzy going on because everybody's there looking at the same house. And they put a contract on it fast. Done. Sealed up. That's the best thing that you want to do.
Absolutely.
So, whether you're doing it yourself or you're doing it with an agent, let's say you're doing it for yourself. And the things that you need to go through to self is a little bit different than an agent because now you're trying to generate all the traffic for yourself. So the things you're going to look at is signage for your property, what is involved with the signs that lead people to your property if it's not on a main drag, the contract you're going to use. I usually use an as-is contract. It basically says the way you see it is the way you're going to buy it.
Yeah, and it's a simple 1 or 2 page, and we'll have an example here in the course for you to download if you want to do self-sales on your own. Absolutely.
Definitely. Flyers. Remember, again, this is how you're advertising. You've got to get people to your house. Sometimes you do a big drawing. There's a website that talks about how to sell your house in 20 minutes, something along that line. It's basically you need to get 100 people through the door in order to find a buyer. So you can do that with drawings. You can do it with giveaways. You can give away $50 gas cards. You can give away trips to the Bahamas. You can
Incentivize them.
$600.
Absolutely.
You know, all kind of different things you can do, but you need 100 people coming through your front door.
Right.
So,
And the more people that come at the exact same time, the better, because then they see, hey, there's a demand for this property, and not necessarily will it increase the asking prices, but people will be more eager to get that offer in sooner.
Dave hit it right on the button. Here's the thing that we do is have a coming soon on whatever you're advertising on a Thursday. Say that it'd be great, but we're not showing it until Saturday morning between 9 and 11.
Create that excitement.
Create the excitement, create the frenzy. So now you got 4 or 5 people in the house and you let them know, well, I'd love to sell this to the highest bidder, but we don't know which one of you it is.
Right.
So we're taking contracts today. One thing we're going to do is we're going to hold all the contracts until we get them in over the weekend.
Right.
Now you got a chance. You can call in and increase your bid if you like, but we're going to call people back and let them know Sunday evening who's the highest bidder.
Right.
And then we'll let you know the opportunity you have to be, give you a
And
day or two.
oftentimes you can use that advantage, that strategy to your advantage.
Yes.
To get a higher price, But like Tim said, when you're marketing that property out, throw it out 5% below what the other comparables are at. And then when you have that feeding frenzy, that flow of people coming in, then oftentimes you can get more. So one thing I do want to touch on just real quick that I think we maybe skipped over is whenever you're looking at those comps, take a little bit of time and look at and actually go in and look at all the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just look at how close they are and if they have a matching square footage or bed and bath. Actually take a couple minutes on each of those properties and look through and look at the level of the finishes. Look at the carpet, look at the wallpaper or paint, and just so that way you can really get an idea of your finishes compared to their finishes, because the people that are shopping are going to be doing that as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So what else do we have? Negotiation process.
It's a little different when you're doing it by yourself, because typically you're negotiating with another agent or you're dealing directly with the buyer. Typically, you're going to run into you're negotiating with an agent.
Right.
They understand this process. They're going to throw out a price. You're going to counter back, and then they're going to get it and with their final adjustment as to what they want to pay. I've not seen that bantering process go back more than that, and typically they kind of meet you halfway.
Right.
Or they're asking you for something. Will you help me with down payment assistance? Will you help me with closing costs? And it's easy to say yes, but I want full price.
Right.
And I have no problem giving you that. We can build it in. We can raise the price of the closing. As long as your appraisal justifies that, it's easy process to do.
Right.
So those are things you just got with negotiating the process. Once you get an accepted contract, now you are in control of that. You take that signed contract to the title company, and now you're babysitting this through the process. That's where it drastically differs from when you're doing it and an agent does it. It's on you. This baby's not going to close unless you walk through the process. You're making sure the buyer's bringing in the pieces, the title company's getting everything that they needed, and earnest money check is brought in by the buyer. You need to be notified when that happens. You need to make sure that you're staying on top of the title company, making sure they're moving through the process well, and you're looking for the loan commitment day.
Right.
One day after that, everybody's talked about, I'm a buyer, I'm pre-approved and all that. That means nothing to me. I want to know, when are they going to give you the money?
Right. You want to see the loan commitment. I love
want
it.
loan commitment. Once that basically says these people have qualified to get the money from the bank and we will pay you as long as the appraisal comes in that justifies the cost of the house. So when that happens, then they're going to set closing dates and so forth. You get the appraisal. As the appraisal comes in, they do their inspections. You work through the inspections. Now you go to closing table, and typically you're going to close after they close, because when you leave, you want the check in hand.
You want the check. Absolutely.
Check.
You want to get that money. Tim, let me ask you this real quick. So as a wholesaler, we buy 90% of our properties off market.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we sell those properties, occasionally somebody will come to us that's an agent, and they'll say, hey, I have a buyer for this house. Will you pay me a commission? And it's probably, same similar deal. 90% of the people that we sell to are the rehabbers or the landlords. But occasionally that 10% will come to us and it'll be an agent, and they'll say, hey, I got that buyer. Will you pay me a commission? So just want to touch on that real quick. if you're doing the self-sale and an agent brings a buyer and they ask you that question, do you typically offer them, 2.5 or 2.7% and or a fixed, commission?
Yes, I usually do 3%. Just make it
3%.
simple. But you're not getting the whole 6%.
Right.
Because you're only bringing half of
You're only bringing
the deal.
half the deal.
So that's what I usually do. But I do definitely pay for agents because I want to keep them in the cycle. If they have one buyer, they might have two buyers. They have two buyers, they might have three. So you want to make sure that you keep that system open so that they're receptive and they go, well, great, I want to keep trying to find you buyers because they get paid by bringing you buyers.
Absolutely.
You get paid. Once again, you may have to take a less commission or less
Right.
profit, but you sold the property.
Right,
That's
and I knew
key.
that was the answer. I just wanted to ask because, you got to think, these buyers' agents, so these real estate agents that work for the buyers, they only get paid if they can get a commission.
Right.
So look at it this way. If Tim has a house that he just rehabbed, and I have a house that I just rehabbed, and Tim puts his on the market with an agent, and I don't, that buyer's agent is going to be, is going to probably try to avoid my property
Sure.
and sell the agent his property so they can earn that commission. So we do
Right.
that as well. We pay the agents the commissions, but like you said, we only give them the 3%, which is what they would earn anyway.
Right.
They don't get to double dip on those.
Right.
Absolutely. So last but by far not the least, closing the transaction. So this is when you go to the title company and everything gets complete, right, Tim?
Yes. I didn't put this as crybaby money on there, but there's always, I expect to lose some money at the closing table, sometimes from just things that pop up. We kind of talked about that earlier. There might be an MSD bill that got overlooked. That's a sewer bill. You might have a forestry bill in the city. When a title company really did their searching, they find some outdated things that pop up. A trash bill that, you owe $56.
Right.
I mean, there's some stuff
Typically,
that just
it's
pop
not
up.
a huge
No,
expense.
no.
But there are a couple last minute things, so just be aware of that.
Less than $2,000 should be the
Right.
amount I'm looking for.
Right.
Sometimes you get, bamboozled into providing a home warranty because they wanted you to change out the hot water heater. You said no because a hot water heater costs about $1,000 to switch out nowadays. So I'm like, it's cheaper to give them a warranty of $400 and just have it. If it goes out, it's covered by
the warranty. Right.
So that's a cheaper way to handle that. I found nowadays. But yeah, it's just issues that pop up. Just understand it. Also, make sure that you get the closing statement a day before you close, if you can. Try not to be rushed, and you're trying to look over the closing because once you close and you walk out with the check, it's over with.
It's over with.
So
That's
you
a
want
great
to
point.
you want to make sure that's done. Inspections. Make sure they walk through the house the day they're purchasing, so that they can't come back and say something is different. Repairs are all done. Lien waivers have all turned in. Now you want to be in contact. You're closing out the last couple of days. Title company has everything. Make sure the agent brings the keys to you that morning so that when you close, or you bring the keys to them so when they close, you can give the keys and they can go
That's a
and
great
be in
point.
their house. That's great. I usually still leave the lockbox on their house for a day or two in case some other item they find out. Because sometimes when you live in a house, you find out there's a few things that just weren't right, and you may need to send a repair guy over to their house. So I like to have access or whatnot, and then I usually come over. It gives me a chance to say hi to them and take the lockbox off the house. So that's just some of the closeout procedures I have. And then it's on to the celebration.
The celebration. That's when you actually come home and you tell the wife that you closed, right?
You better believe it. You throw that check up on the countertop.
That's right. Hey, honey.
She's
Woo!
like, wow, you had a closing today.
You had a
Didn't
closing
even know
today.
that. She's excited, jumping up and down, showing you some love for
That's
the time.
right.
And they are excited. Does yours ever act like that?
Absolutely. She
Yeah.
loves it. We usually will go out and get a dinner and a glass of wine.
Yes.
Because that's the day. That's the payday.
It's
man.
payday. It's what it's all worth. Now,
That's what
sometimes
all that hard work comes back to.
120 days on a rehab, you get a little shorter one. Now, what, 20, 30 days turnaround typically?
With the wholesale, yeah, I mean, sometimes 3 to 5 days.
3 to 5 days.
Sometimes 2 to 3 weeks. On average, it's probably about, a week, week and a half to 2 weeks, somewhere in that range. But with the rehab, 4, 5, 6 months.
I've told
It's average.
wholesalers over and over and over, if I had learned this technique first, I would never do rehab. There's a lot of different moving parts, but they always want to learn. Okay, the wholesaler say, Tim, will you teach me how to rehab? I had a guy working out of my office, and he begged me. I'm like, I want to learn wholesaling. He's like, no. So I was like, okay, I'll teach it. I'm like, really, you're not going to want to do that. He bought 3 of them right off the bat.
Did he?
I'm like, oh, you got a
Man,
headache
you
coming.
jumped.
He got
You
about
jumped
halfway
right in.
through, and he's like, I don't think I like this, Tim. I don't think I liked it. Like I tried to tell you that. It's tough. It's a lot of moving parts.
It's a lot of moving
but
parts.
once you learn the skill, it's the same.
Yeah.
No matter where you go, no matter what state you're in.
That's so true.
You buy it, you fix it, you sell it.
Right. And, you know, there's pros and cons with everything in
Oh,
life,
yeah.
obviously, guys. But, you know, one of the pros with rehabbing is you can get those $30,000-$40,000
Bigger checks.
paydays.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a wholesaler, our average wholesale is usually anywhere between 4 and 6 on average.
Right.
There are deals where we'll make $600-$700. There are deals where we'll make $15,000, but they're rare.
Right.
The average is, you know, $5-6 grand are what we're making on a wholesale, but we're also not dealing with the duration of the project. So, you know, we're providing value, but when you do the rehab, you're providing more value.
Yeah.
So that more value gives you more money in the end. So the payout's a lot larger. So closing the transaction is one of the funnest parts of the business. And, you know, as you learn and start doing some rehabs, you'll go to the closing table and, you know, like we just talked about, you'll, you know, sign the paperwork, get all the inspections, everything figured out, get the cash, transfer the keys, and then boom, you're off to the celebration.
That's right.
I love it. So the next module, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to be talking about after the sale. Here, we'll just go.
All right, part of the celebration is what do you do with that money after you've earned it? There's a book that I recently read called Profit First, who kind of talks about how do you establish yourself and create profit, and you set that aside. Often when you first start as a business owner, you kind of pay all your expenses, and whatever's left over you call profit. He says for the first $250,000, you pay yourself half as salary, and you set 5%, I believe, away into your profit, and you pay your, you know, different charities and so forth that you like, and whatever's left over, usually 70%, is what you use for business continuation. How do you grow your business from that point? Understand Uncle Sam's going to come in there and get his 10%, but if you structure that from the beginning, you will always sell. I mean, you will always use whatever amount of money you put in your bank account. But if you only put 50% in there, that's all that you have to work off of, which will force you to be more fiscally responsible in what you use and how you advertise and what you use to grow your business. And I found it a wonderful way to kind of get started. Also, the next thing we'll do is set up how do you pay yourself over time in order to make sure that you kind of establish yourself in the, you know, a regular system, regular payroll. So what I do is I have a company that allows me to pay myself twice a month. They take out all my taxes. They pay, you know, send to the state. They send to IRS. I'm able to set up a savings account, create a traditional IRA or Roth IRA. Taxes are already jerked out of. They send those to them monthly or quarterly, or how they do that. And then we try to meet with our CPA twice a year to kind of get an idea, you know, am I on track? Am I ahead? Am I behind? You'll see on Facebooks during April, people would pop on, you know, mad, I got to pay $30,000, I'm paying $60,000. Well, to avoid that, pay along the way, quarterly or monthly, and that helps soften the pain so that you don't have to write such a big check.
Yeah, you don't have to pay the taxes on April 15th. That's just the day that they're due. You know, you can pay them, like Tim said, quarterly, you can pay them monthly. I even know business owners that pay them weekly. And it's a pain in the butt for them, but the more money that you make, the government actually starts requiring you to pay at a higher frequency.
Right.
So if you are a very high earner, you don't have a choice but to pay monthly or even in some cases weekly. But you can always elect to do that as well. So as Tim stated, you know, if you want to pay those monthly or quarterly, it helps a lot by not having that huge, you know, expense come April 15th every year. Love that. So then you say, you know, personal, pay yourself second beyond Uncle Sam. So that makes perfect sense. And then savings. Let's touch on that.
Savings is a way that our long-term earnings, you mentioned that you had 2 real estate properties inside your Roth IRA or traditional IRA.
I do.
But it's growing tax-deferred or tax-free depending on how it's established. If you're a young person today, there is no reason why you should not have a Roth IRA.
Totally agree.
Roth IRA, until you become a high earner, it's the best way to stuff cash into a long-term savings program that allows your money to grow income tax-free, and you take it out income tax-free because you pay the tax on the front side of it, and then you fund that investment.
Right.
Over time, as long as you've invested in it for more than 5 years or you're past 59 and a half, you start pulling that cash out, it is beautiful. Now, I set up Roth IRAs for my children instead of the educational IRA, because I mean the short period of time you have to put money in there and then you're pulling it out, and if you don't take it all out, it becomes more burdensome. I would rather put the money in. If they pull it out at college, they pay the 10% penalty, and I'm okay with that and pay regular tax on it. But if they don't take it out, it continues to ride and grows over time,
Right.
and the compounding of interest is huge on that. So each one of our girls had one of those when they grew up. We started that, and we traded their account early on, lending money back and forth to other investors who needed money for different projects. So it worked out well for
So
them.
definitely look into the traditional IRA. I also have a Roth IRA. I prefer the Roth IRA. There's pros and cons to each. The Roth IRA, you're limited to only contributing $5,500, I believe, up until you're a certain age, and then you can actually contribute more. But you're also limited if you make too much money. I think don't quote me, but I think it's $125,000 a year. Then you can no longer contribute to it. So you do have your advantages and disadvantages with both traditional and Roth. But savings is very, very important. I think that's the main goal here, is you need to have a savings plan, guys, because you don't want to be working forever. You don't want to constantly be doing these flips. You want to be able to retire at some point. So definitely look ahead and put together a savings plan. So last but not least slide in this series of celebration is exiting the rat race.
All right. I want to go back to that last slide. There was one thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned that I don't want to leave people confused on.
Yeah.
One thing is a contribution, and another thing is a distribution.
That's a great point.
A contribution, as Dave was talking about, is limited to the $5,500 or $5,000 or some amount that is small.
Right, from our Roth. Right.
But if you purchased a real estate property and some other person did the rehab and you sold that property,
great point, Tim.
you get to put all of that profit inside it. Here's an example. You bought it for $25,000. You put $25,000 worth of, not you, but you hired a general contractor.
Right.
They did the work, and you sold that investment property for $100,000. You realized a $50,000 profit. That goes inside your Roth IRA.
Right.
That is not a contribution. You're not limited to only being able to put $5,500.
So that's called the capital gain. So the capital gain is you can put that in there.
It's huge.
Tax free. So the $5,500 that I was talking about is what you can contribute.
Yes.
But it's not what you can put in total. You have to just put that additional in. It has to just be earned. It has to be not earned. That's the wrong word, but it has to be a capital gain. So a distribution.
Contribution.
Love it.
One is a contribution, what you made an investment out of
Versus
your
a distribution.
income that you got paid every day working. The other one was the capital gains that you had from the profit of your wise move.
Super,
Big,
great
big,
point.
big difference.
Big difference.
And
Love
you have to
that.
look into that, but those third-party administrators will help you.
But
Now
that is the best reason why you should invest in your IRA is because of the profits that you can make are tax free.
Right.
Love it. Love it.
Yes.
So let's move on to the rat race here. Exiting the rat race. Nobody wants to be in the rat race. Unfortunately, most people are in the rat race.
This is a challenge that people have time and time again is, Tim, when do I make the jump out there into full-time rehabbing, full-time real estate? I would caution you to do a different plan than I did, as I told you earlier. My situation was I liked rehabbing. A guy talked to me. I got excited about it. I did 3 rehabs part-time. And my supervisor just happened to come in one day and say something off to me. And the next day I filled out my resignation, walked in and quit. Then I went to the bank and asked for a line of credit.
You did it a little bit backwards.
A little bit backwards, but
That's
I've
okay.
done a lot of those things a little bit backwards.
Right. Hey, you learned.
So what
Right.
I've learned and what I coach people is that you should have a set number of rental properties established, maybe with some passive income coming in. When that passive income equals your expenses, it might be a time to quit. You've got a year's
great
worth
point.
of salary established and set aside in a bank account for the what ifs and the I don't know. That would be wise. And then have your business in a scalable situation where you can bring on more properties and you've got more income to handle it, and everything is laid out. Your system is established, your codes, your colors, your crews, all that's all in place, and you've got your dream team in place. All of those people that you need in order to make this successfully run smoothly are already in place. They know how they've done it. They've done it multiple times. All you have to do is monitor this process. That's an excellent time to make the jump.
Absolutely, and I love that because what you've essentially said is you've created a business at that
Yes.
point, and you're not a self-employed entrepreneur.
Correct.
You have put together processes and systems to where you are just managing at that point. You are a business owner, not a self-employed entrepreneur. I love that.
Which goes back full circle to what we talked about in the beginning. We're trying to create time freedom, income freedom, and the lifestyle that we want to live on our own terms. And I believe that's what everybody who's watching this is desiring, is I want time freedom, income freedom, and I want to live my life on my terms and no one else's.
And you know what, Tim? That's so crazy that you bring that up right now, because most of the entrepreneurs that I know, that I network with, at one point in time had a job.
Mhm.
They left their job because they wanted freedom. Yet they're working 80, 90 hours a week at their new entrepreneurial
Right.
job. So essentially, they didn't exit the rat race to become a business owner. They exited the rat race to become a self-employed entrepreneur.
Right.
So what we're trying to push and explain and teach to you folks here is that you can turn this into a business, to where it gives you back that freedom that you're looking for.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, guys, thank you so much. We wanted to wrap up on after the sale and the celebration. Woo! You made your money. Congrats. Next, we're
Take it
gonna.
on to the next level.
That's right. Next, we're going to jump into some case studies and show you guys some of the recent flips that Tim and myself have done, and just run through the numbers. We're going to have pictures. We're going to have different charts to show, hey, this is what we bought it at. This is what it looked like. Here's what we spent, and here's how it looks after the fact. And we're going to provide documents and definitely some things that will help you whenever you start doing yours as well. So jump ahead to the next couple modules, look at some of the case studies, and we'll see you then.